So, Christy, you've been an educator and administrator for many years, and you've taught in a variety of different models. Currently, the Palm Beach Christian Academy is becoming a classical Christian school. Why do you think that that is a awesome educational model and it's worth pursuing?
Well, I have had a lot of experience in education, like you mentioned. I've been in education for over 25 years. I've had experience in several different models, which have led me to this model of Christian classical
Sure.
education being the model of choice for Palm Beach Christian Academy.
Right.
So, a little bit of background, I did start teaching many years ago, back in the early 90s. I taught in the public school system.
Okay.
And so I loved that experience. I believe that God had me there as a light in the community, and that even though I couldn't be overt with my faith with the children, I could still show them the love of Christ
Sure.
in the ways that I was able to.
So you
do
felt
so.
like you felt like you were doing missions in a sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And we need Christian educators in the public school system.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So spent time doing that for a while, and then I got married, started having children, and I ended up staying home for a period of time where I actually homeschooled my children. So that was also very transformative in that experience, being able to stay home
Sure.
and educate my children in that way.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
It was challenging at times, but it was one of those things that I knew God had called me to, so that gave me the endurance and the ability to do that for the time that He had me in.
Okay.
So then after that, I actually worked in the public school system again. The first time it was in the elementary setting. This time it was in the middle school setting.
Okay.
And public middle school is...
I bet that was different.
Yeah, it was a whole other can of worms.
Yeah.
But I loved it because, children are children, and, my sixth grade children were just, little kids in big bodies. So if I
Sure.
showed them the love and care that they deserved, they really responded well to me. And again, I felt like I was a missionary in the public school system. Interestingly, I did have a Christian vice principal
Okay.
who mentored me and spent time with me. And the one thing that she told me is, she's like, Christy, remember, you answer to a higher authority
That's
than
awesome.
the Palm Beach County School District.
Yeah.
So I knew that when I did have the opportunities, I would speak truth to some of the children that were in my care. And so that was definitely a wonderful experience. And,
So you said that was public school.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about, you also taught at a private Christian school.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So God led me from the public school system into a Christian school. And that was, again, my growth just continued there, whereas in the public school system, the emphasis was much more on the academic success of children, which is great, don't get me wrong, but the Christian school that I was at, it was about the academics, but it was about how are we teaching the academics, and are we teaching children through a biblical worldview, through the lens of God's truth in those subjects. So that
Sure.
really opened up that world to me of being able to minister to children through their emotional, their spiritual health, being able to lead Bible classes and Bible studies and pray with children. It was
big switch from
huge,
public school. Yeah.
huge. And
Yeah.
a lot of Christian educators, when they go from public to private, they think, oh wow, I'm free now to talk about the Lord, but it actually is a transition, and they say it takes a couple years for
Okay.
teachers to actually start becoming so comfortable that
They can just openly share
they can
about.
openly share, and they see God in everything that they teach.
Yeah.
But that was the Christian school system, and then now I'm at Palm Beach Christian Academy, and it's really been an amazing experience because Palm Beach Christian Academy is actually attached to Family Church. So it's that mindset of the school is now a ministry.
Yeah.
And so what we have been doing is really looking at every aspect of our curriculum, of our program, the way that the teachers are trained, the way that we associate with the parents and work with the parents and partner with the parents, and we're making those decisions on what is best for our children, because we want children who know and serve the Lord and are prepared to go out into the world and have a strong faith, a faith that does not shake, a faith that is based on truth, and that's what we want. So we've been really playing with that for the last few years of what does that mean for us?
Sure.
And are we doing the best for our children?
Yeah. Okay, so you served in public school with a couple of different age groups. You served in a private Christian school. What brought you then to the classical model? So I know you said you've been thinking and talking through that at the Palm Beach Christian Academy, but what made you think back, I think maybe classical would be a good idea?
Well, I actually, when I homeschooled, I was introduced to classical education 18 years ago when I was homeschooling. My children are older; they're 21 and 24 now. So this is a while back where there weren't. Nobody really knew about classical education.
Yeah, I know now, education. Like the homeschool model for classical Christian is popular, but it wasn't back then.
No.
So you were kind of pioneering.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like I was a pioneer back then. We had a group of 8 or 10 moms that got together at a local church.
Wow.
And we actually did a co-op using Christian classical education. And so that was the time that I was really exposed to the classical model of education. Completely fell in love with it, saw all the benefits of it and how it does prepare our children better for the world ahead, academically, spiritually, emotionally, all across the board. And so it was always something that was a passion for me. I actually had experiences where I was able to go to different small conferences and speak about classical and kind of train some of the teachers on some of the nuts and bolts on how to teach it. So love classical education, but it was something that I was never really able to implement in any of the other schools the public school I was at and then the Christian school I was at. It was not the system in place. So it was something that was tucked back in my head as something I always wanted to explore further. And it's really neat because now that we're talking about it and doing it here, it's just so interesting to see how God has prepared me for today with something that he put in my heart 18 years ago.
Sure. That's awesome.
Yeah. So anyway, now I know that you have had some experience getting to know classical.
Yes.
You're a pastor, and so tell me a little bit about, and there was a time many, many months ago where you came to me and said, Christy, have you thought about Christian classical education?
Right.
Could you talk to me a little bit about
Sure.
how that came to be?
Yeah, so my experiences in my story is probably going to be a little bit shorter just because
You're not as old.
Well, no, that's not why. I just haven't had the experience in education that you've had. However, one of the things as a pastor, I work with different kids from different ages. I've worked as a kids pastor, so I've worked with birth to 5th grade. I've been a student pastor. I've worked with middle school and high school, and I've had kids from a variety of different educational backgrounds: private Christian, classical Christian, and
homeschool mostly.
Homeschool mostly, and then in public school. And I've just noticed some of the kids that are in those different models, the kids that seem to be some of the brightest and best cultural leaders are kids coming out of the classical model. So it's something that I noticed firsthand. And the kids that are really on fire for the Lord coming out of public school and coming out of a private Christian school, they are flourishing and growing in their faith and growing in their academic success, I think sometimes in spite of their schools. And Christian schools really do a good job, but as far as the difference that it seemed from public school to Christian school, there didn't seem to be much of a difference. And I noticed that in a lot of my students. Sometimes it was public school kids that oftentimes maybe were even more on fire.
Right.
So I just thought there's something wrong here. There's got to be a better option. I started researching, looking into it. I have 2 girls now, and so I did it when I first started out as a youth pastor. Now that I have 2 girls of my own, my wife and I have been thinking and looking through what is the best model to not only just educate our girls, but spiritually form them and put them in an environment where we trust the teachers and we trust that they're going to be learning about Jesus and learning how all the subjects interact with Jesus. And I remember I started doing just research and found the classical model and
was just stumbled upon it?
Just kind of stumbled upon it. And so there's different pastors that I like to listen to, their podcasts and things like that, and respect their ministries, and notice that a lot of them were connected to classical Christian education in some way.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of the big thing that I guess the light bulb moment for me that kind of really and as I've done more research and time's progressed, I've just really been sold that classical Christian education is the way to go.
And I know when you approached me about this, one of the interesting things that you noticed is that there really were not Christian classical schools in our area, because I know your children are in the preschool years.
Yeah.
And you're looking towards those years.
Yeah, elementary, middle school, high school.
Right,
yeah,
right.
Thinking about the future.
Right.
It was at the point where I was talking to my wife. I'm like, if we have to start a school or we have to figure out something, then that's what we'll do. And so I really do think it was a God thing that it was kind of on your mind. How do we take our school and make it different from what maybe some of these other schools are doing and developing cultural leaders? I was thinking, man, how can I find a classical Christian school? Because none really exist in South Florida. Really popular other places.
There's some in South Florida, Central Florida, but here in Palm Beach County. Christian
right.
classical you see them in the homeschool communities, but not in a brick and mortar school.
Right, that's what I mean. So the classical homeschool movement's big in South Florida, and there are some in Broward and I think Dade County, but nothing in Palm Beach County. And so that just got my mind thinking towards that more.
So it's really exciting to be going on this adventure with you, and it is so evident that God is in this and that God has been preparing me for all these years and you for all these years and coming together. It's been such a joy to talk to you about it, whereas I'm coming at it from a more educational standpoint. You're coming to it from a more pastoral standpoint, and it's been really exciting, and I'm just so excited to see what God has got for Palm Beach Christian Academy moving forward.
Yeah. I'm excited for it too.